The NBA play-in tournament begins next week with some familiar and some unfamiliar faces. Who really has a chance to advance and make a little noise in the postseason, in the playoffs? Matt and I are going to play a little game to figure it out. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference. How about the Cleveland Cavs? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think they can make it out of the play-in, maybe make some noise.
I'm going to go thumbs down just because I feel like Cleveland is trending in the wrong direction right now. I think the injuries that they're starting to get late are adding up, and they just don't feel like they're having the momentum they need to capitalize. And with the play-in being so intense this year and so competitive, in a one-game situation, I think that there are some stars on these other play-in teams that we're going to talk about where I just don't trust it. And even if they were to get out of the play-in, I don't think they're even going to be able to get a win against a top seed like a Miami or a Milwaukee, who look like they're going to be the 1 and 2.
Yeah, I completely agree. The injuries to Evan Mobley and Jared Allen have completely derailed what has been an otherwise pretty great season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Given the circumstances, those two should be back for a first-round series, but it doesn't look like they'll be at 100%, and those two need to be at full strength for Cleveland to actually make some noise and win in playoff series. So let's move on to the Brooklyn Nets. KD, Kyrie, what do you think about their chances to make it out of the play and make some noise?
I mean, you said it all right there. It's KD and Kyrie. They're not going to allow Brooklyn to not make it out of the play-in tournament. I think Nash isn't going to do it either. I like some of the additions they've had. Seth Curry has been somewhat nice. I think Drummond is going to help them. But in a one-game situation, I do think that Brooklyn is going to be able to figure it out. The loss of Ben Simmons does hurt, though.
Yeah. I mean, you have to give them a thumbs up because of those two superstars, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. You didn't mention Bruce Brown. I really like what he's done for this team. He has really carved out a niche, and he has turned into a really important player. But you also mentioned somebody who I think is going to prevent them from really, making the Eastern Conference Finals, and that's Steve Nash. I don't think he's a great coach, and I think he's proven that time and time again. He's going to have the opportunity to change that narrative, but until I see that happen, I think the Nets are going to be handicapped by their coach, which isn't a great situation to be in. But let's talk about the team that was just in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. What do you think about the Hawks' opportunity to make it out of play and make some noise?
Absolutely. I mean, you said it right there once again. The Hawks were an Eastern Conference Finals team last year. They lost in 6 to Milwaukee, but they had a great playoff run. Most of that team is back. They still have the same coach, Nate McMillan. They've struggled, but in certain moments you see those flashes from them. A perfect example is they actually played against Durant on a night where he drops 55.
Career high.
A career high, and they ruin it by beating Brooklyn. This is a Hawks team that you can't sleep on because if they figure it out, they're dangerous, and they could easily make a run in this playoffs.
We agree, because the ice tray, that man is different in the postseason, and that's something you see out of superstars. He gets better in the postseason. He's obviously spectacular in the regular season as well. And for that reason, I think they can definitely make some noise and spoil a top seeds playoff run. And you mentioned it, the experience is there. This team is pretty deep. This team is long. They can defend when they want to. And I like, obviously Clint Capella as well, what he brings on both ends of the court, being a lob threat for Trae Young. But Trae can really ruin some people's time.
Let's coin the phrase right now, playoff Trae. We're expecting him, and we can't wait for him.
No doubt about it. Let's close out with the last Eastern Conference team in playoff range, Charlotte Hornets. What do you think about their chances?
Charlotte, I think they're flashy. I'm excited about them. I love LaMelo Ball. I like some of those younger options they have with Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, but they just feel like they're too young right now, and they're too wild. Inconsistent is a good word for them. As good as they can be at moments, they just also will surprise you and just lose that momentum. I think a perfect analogy for their season right now is LaMelo Ball gets the pass, does an immediate spin move to get past the defender, and then he does what we both thought was a Magic Johnson-esque pass out to the corner for a three-pointer, and it airballs, ruining what would have been a ESPN #1 10 out of top 10 highlight. That's the season right now, and this is a team that's so close, but I think it's gonna be next year for them. I don't think it's this year.
Yeah, I'll be quick because we agree here. I love LaMelo Ball, and I love the youth on this team. But again, it's just too inconsistent. They're still a piece or two away from being legitimate contenders in a very, very tough Eastern Conference. But they're fun to watch nonetheless. Let's go to the Western Conference. Let's start with the T-Wolves. What do you think about Minnesota's chance to make some noise, get out of a play-in?
I love the T-Wolves right now. It's actually nice to see them use that talent and that potential that they've had for the last, 5 years basically, and finally figure it out. D'Angelo Russell's playing well. They have Ant. They have Karl Anthony Towns playing some of the best basketball he's played. This is a team that is bought into what they're trying to do. They're young. They're athletic. They play solid defense, and they play solid offense as well. Yeah. I'm excited about them, and they could be dangerous.
Yeah, watch out. I mean, the T-Wolves, I think they've arrived, particularly because of Ant and Cat. Those two have, really turned into a legit, combo. And obviously D-Russ playing a true point guard role, when he is, 20-plus points. The T-Wolves are tough to beat. But the Minnesota is the top scoring team in the NBA. Yep. They attempt and make the most threes per game in the NBA. So this is a scary team that can go out for 135 points at a time. And, when you do that, if you can lock down defensively late in games, they're going to have chances to beat some good teams. But how about the LA Clippers with the return of PG-13 recently? I see your answer.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about the Clips?
I mean, the Clippers, even without Paul George, were still a team I thought could get out of the play-in just because those role pieces are so good. And then you talk about Nash being a detriment. Tyronn Lue is one of our favorite coaches and one of the best coaches in the NBA. We both agree on that.
Sure.
He's going to get you out of it. He can coach you out of the play-in. He could even coach you to a few wins in a first-round series against one of the top teams like Phoenix or Memphis. Yeah. With Paul George back, it's just icing on top of the cake, cherry on top as far as getting out of the play-in. And now they're dangerous once again.
Yeah, I mean, not only is Paul George back, but PG-13. He looks like him. I mean, a 34-piece in his return, from that elbow injury. And, Matt, do you know who the best three-point shooter percentage-wise in the NBA this season is?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
It's Luke Kennard.
You know what? I was thinking it was going to be a ridiculous name like Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard has a burner, and this team is pretty deep. This team is obviously, as you mentioned, well coached, and they can definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if they get into a 7 slot. I would damn near pick the Clippers to beat Memphis in a first-round series at this point. But can't wait to see how that shakes out. But how about the Pelicans? New Orleans, we were down on them. Many people didn't even think they'd be in the playing range, but they are here. And there's news that Zion might return this season. But what do you think about the Pelicans?
Even without the Zion news, I still think this team has the talent to get out of the play-in. I like C.J. McCollum. I like Brandon Ingram on these two teams. I think they've been dominating and playing their style of basketball. And they're one of those teams that has quietly been getting hot and gaining some momentum. So in a one-game situation, if Brandon Ingram and C.J. McCollum can take over, who knows? Sky's the limit in that sense.
I'm glad we finally disagree somewhere because this has been a nice little story for the Pelicans. I'm glad that, because again, this season really looked like it was turning into a dumpster fire at certain points with all the Zion, drama and whatnot. But, they turned around, led by C.J. McCollum. I was never really high on C.J., but, he's seemed like he's reinvigorated by being around kind of a younger crew, kind of being the go-to guy in the close. And I love Brandon Ingram. Valanciunas is really giving them really good minutes, but I just don't see this team having enough. Again, we're talking about them playing a top 2 seed in the Western Conference.
No, I understand.
They're just not going to have enough. So I wouldn't even be surprised if they don't make it out of the play-in, with the rest of the teams. And we'll talk about another team who just eliminated the LA Lakers.
Yep.
What do you think about the San Antonio Spurs, their opportunities to make it out of the play-in and make some noise?
Unfortunately, I do not think the Spurs are going to be able to make any noise. I think they limped into the play-in. Like I said last week when we talked about the Lakers not making it into the play-in was going to be more on themselves rather than the Spurs actually taking it from them.
Right.
And so basically the Spurs were able to lose less than the Lakers. And that's basically why they're in there, and that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a first-game exit for them.
Yeah, somebody had to benefit from the Lakers' mess, and it's the San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich and the crew. They just don't have enough. I love DeJounte Murray. I think Jakob Poeltl is actually one of the better, most slept-on bigs in the league. So they have some talent, but this team is just too young. And just getting to the play and getting to the postseason, I think, would be a massive, massive W for that young team. But in terms of making it out of the play-in and giving a first or second seed some run, some trouble? Absolutely not. But we can't wait for the play-in to tip off, see how these playoffs really shake out. But catch us on next week's episode of Simple Question for Scott Proctor and my guy, Matt Morris, right here. We'll see you then.